And welcome back to Chapter 26 of the Pokemon Academia crossover What If. You'll notice I'm in the corner here. That's because there really wasn't a lot of images I had to put together for this particular What If, so I'm in the corner for today. But last time on the My Hero Academia Pokemon, My Pokemon Academia What If, All Might and All for One had their mighty clash, with All Might releasing his, United Region Smash, along with his trusty Silvally, knocking out Thundurus and All for One. Winning the day. All Might wins. Victory! But now we cut to the aftermath. I actually have the notes here for, because, again, I like to reiterate, most of the time with a what if, I know how it's going to go. I just need to formulate it properly. So I don't really need to write it down. With something like this where I really had to create the story a bit more, I actually had to write this down. Particularly when it came to battles, I had to write it down. But so we cut to the aftermath where everyone's there rooting for All Might. They've taken basically the Pokemon that were captured, that Midoriya and Bakugo and their team had rescued, All Might to the Pokemon Center with the Recovery Girl. All for One is basically being carried away. And taken, to jail. He's knocked out. So they're all basically now at the Pokemon Center. So as they come out of as they're waiting out to see how the Pokemon are doing, they're all just nervous and just worried. And Bakugo particularly just feels like, oh God, it's kind of, this is all my fault. I got captured. If I wasn't so freaking hothead and all that. But then ultimately, the doors open and Recovery Girl steps out, and there's All Might. I was like, All Might, you're okay. Yeah, don't worry, I'm fine, guys. We thought it's like, I know. It looks scary, but it's all good. There is one thing you should know, though. There is only one little problem. Well, what's that? All Might will not be able to fight with his Pokemon anymore. What? It's true. That last fight with All for One took too much toll on my body. Then he's just transforms back. I wouldn't even be able to last a few seconds in that form now. No, but I won't be able to last more than a few seconds in this form now. But it matters. But it doesn't matter. As long as I have faith in my Pokemon, I can still remain the champion. I just won't be able to duke it out with the best of them anymore. That's all. And he just has a laugh on this. But Midoriya's like, it's like, hey, no sad faces now. This was bound to happen eventually. But I'm just glad I was just able to stop All for One this time for good before it happened. And Midoriya's has this, okay, this is the way it has to be face on. I'm just like, all right, I understand. But Bakugo, he's still he's not sure about it. He's not the only one who's okay. Oh, those Pokemon are okay too, right? And he's like, well, ask him yourselves. And the two Pokemon are actually able to, walk out and kind of greet them and kind of give them a thanks. Because they weren't in any serious condition, the two Pokemon they found, which we're about to find out. They were just really weak and tired, but a little bit of recovery and Pokemon aid from Recovery Girl. They're honestly awake and they're ready to leave if they want to. And as they say that, the two Pokemon, one walks out, one floats out. One looks kind of like a weird squirrel with these two pointy red ears. The other one looks like this yellow cat creature that stands almost as tall, about nearly as tall as Midoriya stands. These two Pokemon are Victini and Zeraora. So these two Pokemon are obviously, now like I said, All for One, his goal was obviously to take the abilities of Pokemon and take their abilities and add them to himself. That was his, like All Might, he was one of the very few people on this existing world who actually had evolved beyond just a physical trait like Asui or Mina does. Instead, he actually had an ability, like All Might had his super strength and durability. But no, these two are awake, and All Might is aware of that was then it was Deku Bakugo who saved them. It's like, you did good saving them. Was there anything we would have saved everyone, but we couldn't find anyone else? And the police going, no, you did. The fact that the police said they looked and they couldn't find any other Pokemon there. So it's fine. You don't need to worry too much about that. The fact that you were able to save anyone is quite impressive indeed. And the two Pokemon are just kind of looking around and just kind of taking in the surroundings. And It's like, well, I guess you. It's like, I guess you two are free to go. I mean, there's no reason for you to stay cooped up in here. You're free. And both of them are kind of a little just uh, at the moment. Like Zeraora is kind of looking a little vacant, just kind of thinking on things. Meanwhile, Victini immediately goes to Bakugo, just starts like cuddling up to him, like hugging him, like thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's like, what the hell? It's like, what is this thing's problem? Bakugo is immediately just like, what is going on? Oh, it seems Victini here really likes you. It's probably because you saved it, after all. I can imagine. I wouldn't be surprised if it might want to travel with you now. It's like Victini. She's like Victini. It's like, why would I want this? Why would I want this Pokemon? Because he's not a thinking card. Because this thing is just annoying him to no end. Just, it's like, why the hell would I want this? It's like, and even All Might and Recovery Girl, and even Deku's like, are you crazy, dude? He's like, what? Like, what did you call me? Like, you realize Victini is a mythical Pokemon. This might be the only Victini in existence. Now when it comes to the concept of mythical Pokemon, that is something I want to address right now, because it's the same concept with Legendary. In terms of, if we're looking at both anime and we're looking at the lore and we're looking at the games, there tends to be more than one legendary Pokemon, unless it's like a true like embodiment of something like Groudon, Kyogre are the embodiment of the sea and the land. So it makes sense there is only one of them. We've only seen one of them. Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus, although Arceus is an event Pokemon, still. There's only Giratina. There's only one of them. But Entei, Raikou, and Suicune, as far as you know, there are multiples of those. The Reggies, we know for a fact there are multiple of those. But they are classified as legendary Pokemon. Latios and Latias, from what we understand, there actually are multiple of those, or have been multiple of those. If we even go by the anime, we know there is multiple Lugia. There was a baby Lugia forgotten. How the hell that happened, I don't know. So there are clearly, and then when you get to mythical Pokemon, that's where it really gets tricky, because mythical Pokemon are, in essence, somewhat rarer than even legendary Pokemon. Legendary Pokemon are very hard to find and are very few in number. But mythical Pokemon, there's a reason, at least in lore, they're called mythical, because it's like almost like there's a legend, but then there's a myth. Legend states, a legend can be based off of some fact or something. And then the legend, like the legend of Hercules. Hercules very well was probably a real person, but the idea of what he was got passed down from generations to generations. Now we have these legends and stories. But then again, myth is different. Myth is really very much stories with no factor. Legend is something that has, what's the best way to put it? A real pedigree behind it. A legend is something where it's like the legend of Hercules, all the things he did to become legendary. But mythical almost comes off as magical, as, not like fairy tale like, as almost, was it real or was it not? That's what mythical is compared to legendary. That's why mythicals are kind of harder to get than legendaries, besides the whole event thing. And it even says, you realize Victini may be the only one of its kind. Mythical Pokemon are so rare as to believe them not to exist. Although any experienced trainer knows they exist. They just choose to remain anonymous. So mythical Pokemon are comparable to legendaries in power as well, young Bakugo. And Bakugo here says, like, you serious? It's like, Victini says, all right. It's like, you can come with it. I'll take you. He's like, Victini! She's like, Jesus, get off me. And everyone's kind of laughing at him. Just getting a good laugh at him at his expense. He's like, give me a Pokemon. Get in the ball. Meanwhile, Deku goes over and looks at Zeraora, who's still looking a little vacant. Just kind of looking out at the door, but kind of, not sure. He smiles at... He smiles at Zeraora and just goes, Zeraora, do you want to? You're free to go too. Do you want to go? And Zeraora finally looks up and just looks at Deku and just, it's like, Zeraora. I don't know what a Zeraora sounds like. I didn't see the movie he was in, but that sounds kind of like a Zeraora to me, like Zeraora. Now, to be fair, mythical Pokemon, you can sometimes speak human too. Usually it's psychic types that can speak human in terms of any Pokemon, but there are, like, Lapras, for instance, isn't a psychic, but communicated with telepathy with Ash in that anime episode. not every psychic Pokemon can, obviously. And like Mewtwo, obviously, but it's also legendary. Mew doesn't. Lugia does. Entei did, but that was in the movie and it wasn't even a real Entei. I'm thinking off the top of my head now of all the Pokemon I know that have communicated with telepathy. Darkrai surprisingly doesn't, though you'd think it would. Arceus did, but that's the god Pokemon, so it makes sense Arceus would. Actually, it's not. It's very few Pokemon when you really break it down that can actually speak with telepathic capabilities. Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank on most of them. So, yeah, I'm sure there have been others. But, yeah, I'm at zero, or it just does. I mean, I'm sure they can understand you. I'm sure they're powerful enough and smart enough to understand you. Zera's just looking at it, and Zera is just like, Zera, or. And Midori's actually a little surprised, like, wait, you want to go with me? Zera, or. Well, I mean, I'm great. I'd love to have you on, but why? I mean, why do you want to go with me? Zera, I think this, if I may, young Midoriya, since none of us are really capable of understanding Pokemon's language very well, I would guess that this Aura feels indebted to you for saving its life. It wishes to travel with you and be of service if it could. Is that right, Zera? Zera. And then Midoriya's like, well, how can I refuse? I mean, if you want to come, you're going to come. It's like, Zera. It's like, well, the woman. Between you and everyone else, we'll make the best team ever. Zeraor. And then, he captures Zeraor, and he introduces him later to his team, and I'm sure they all get along. Now, and so it's like, All Might wishes them well. Bakugo heads out early. It's like, well, looks like I'm not heading to next gym. We're getting some training in. Man, I'm going to be training this bad boy up. I'm fierce. The next time we meet Deku, you better be ready. It's like, you better believe it. And that confident attitude pisses me off, Deku. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's like, yeah, I'll see you next time, Bakugo. So they head off to the next gym in Swampwood City. Now, before we end, I should point out, because I always have to point out when I introduce these things, why did I choose Victini and Zeraora for the next members of Midoriya and Bakugo's team? Mind you, by the way, this fills out Midoriya's team. Midoriya now has a team of 6. Bakugo still is down by 1. He'll be catching his pretty later on, but he's still down by 1. So why did you? With Victini A is a fire psychic type. So I wanted, first and foremost, them to each get either a legendary or a mythical, because it shows that they really are prodigies of their generation, just like they are in My Hero. But I wanted one that obviously fit with both of them. With Victini, Bakugo, let's be honest, Bakugo was super fucking lucky as a kid. He got a fantastic quirk. He was praised. He was also not a genius per se, but he was smart. He's smart. I mean, he's close enough to his genius. He is smart. So he was extremely lucky as a kid. Whereas Midoriya had to work for everything. And because all that went to his head. And Victini is pretty much the luck Pokemon. That's what it is. It boasts critical hits, boosts the chance of critical hits. It's just a very, it's kind of what it embodies. Zeraora, on the other hand, Zeraora for me actually was was already in my head when I was starting out the team for Midoriya, because if you remember with Hitmontop, I used Hitmontop to emphasize Midoriya's fighting style with the shoot style with his kicks and punches. But Zeraora, I feel, represents full Cowling perfectly, because first I've got the Plasma Fist. It's an electric type, and it's a very humanoid. It's a fighting looking. I'm surprised this Zeraora really isn't a fighting electric type. It really looks like it should be. It is designed perfectly as an electric fighting type. But because of the way it's designed, because it's very humanoid looking, but because it wraps itself in electricity, it is pretty much full Cowling to a T. Midoriya, gets the lightning effect around him when he's activating full Cowling. The Plasma Fist with Midoriya's punch, it just fit perfectly for me. So, at least in my opinion. So Zeraora made complete sense. It was always in my head when designing Midoriya's team. But that is where we leave off. I'm not going to continue on, even though we're only at about the 15-minute mark. I feel like that's a good cutoff point for right now, because the next chapter involves a lot more that I'm not set up for, and we'd probably be going close to like the 25-minute mark, and I don't want to go that far into that particular chapter. Plus, I'm getting close to the end of the chapters I've already written out, so I have to continue writing out more chapters. I am kind of solidifying in this story a little bit because we're already at chapter 26, so we're definitely going into the 30s. I want to try to avoid the 40s if I can, because that seems like a lot. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for who would win, Star Wars, superhero, magic, what if, anything you do on the channel, put that in the comments below. Let me know. I'll get to that at some point. Hit that bell if you want notifications. I'll be back a little later with something else. Have a good day.